Hey Remoras, it's me, Mr. Sharx. SCP-001 proposals, or decoys, or distractions. Whatever floats your boat. The SCP wiki writers are too afraid of making a bad choice to stop you. Having read the notice at the top, I'd say they threw their hands in the air and left everything for the reader to decide. Are they decoys or not? The choice is yours, my Remoras. But if you need help picking, I'll lend you a fin. So I go onto the wiki page, scroll through the whiteness of doom, close my eyes when I get to the Berryman link for Dememe Tick Kill Agent, and huzzah! I am rewarded for my bravery. Now listen carefully, because it's up to you. If they didn't intend for this to happen, they could have just done this. But no. Let us begin. First proposal. Jonathan Balls isn't inert, it's a sheaf of papers. It shows up every now and then to inform SCP personnel about anomalies. The sequence of the anomalies it has info on is the same as the official list. The living room was first and is SCP-002, the biological motherboard was next, and SCP number designations are not sequential. How about one that doesn't conflict with the SCP lore? The prototype. Have you ever rewatched a horror movie after 10 years of avoiding it as best you can after a traumatic first viewing as a kid? Then you get underwhelmed watching it again? This dude would be the villain if it wasn't behind the safety of SCP-001 listing. Hey, are you still with me? Come on, don't lose confidence yet. Dr. Clef's proposal is really cool. The Gate Guardian, a giant flaming being that protects the Kingdom of Arabia set in an alternate timeline. He serves his country well. The sword he wields is hotter than the sun. Swinging it leaves no trace of anything without a visa. Fighting off other SCPs such as 682. This is probably the best choice for a non-special SCP-001, but I'd prefer that they just gave him a number and that would be the end of it. I mean, that would be one less row of access denied. I support it, unlike Knutum's proposal. The Lock, a perfectly ellipsoidal gemstone that can't be opened. Fret not, researchers, I guarantee it will be opened before people think of it as a good SCP-001 choice. At best, it'll take turns with the factory. Founded by James Anderson in 1835 in, let's just say, America. I didn't see anything about child labor and people had off on Sundays despite Anderson's beliefs, making it one of the better factories to work at during the Industrial Revolution. I don't blame the people at all for manufacturing the SCP items that we all know and love. As stupid as this proposal is, I will say this is one of the lesser decoys of the SCP-001 page, just for Mr. Anderson's good behavior. It's as genuine as Dr. Mann's decoy, the Spiral Path, but if you look at the list counterclockwise, it not only looks like the Authoritarian Index, the Spiral Path is a step above all others. But it's full of monsters, so we're more likely to be attacked than for there to be anyone who thinks this is any good for SCP-001 honors. Dr. Mackenzie, writing the page for a subject that no one will read. The Legacy. I would go on, but this is what he has to share. Why should I care? That's really for you guys to answer. As for the database, the SCP wiki writers? No. Bit of a disclaimer, the wiki writers did not give me permission to talk about them. I am at risk of losing my video games for a week. The Foundation, which is actually a high school and not a site for the SCP Foundation that the title would have you believe. The layout and composition of the building is always changing. No, that's not coming from the mouths of students who said they would never ever take drugs in freshman year. I'd like to point out that these pages are like Tiger handhelds. Each one has its own special structure with different subheadings and labels and summaries that come in all shapes and sizes with their own rules. In this abomination, the object class, which lets you know how hard it is to contain an SCP, is 53. And the description is split in two, of which neither are named description. I got some known information for you, Scantron. SCP-001 is the SCP Wiki's White Album. Everyone gets weird and does their own thing. You are Revolution 9. Next up is 36 people. If they ever have the spare time to Avengers Assemble, they are unstoppable in terminating the SCPs. Also humans if they die. If you ever find your city swarming with the supernatural, it's not because Gozer has arrived, it's because Han Chinese male age 97's heart sucks so much he died. 36 times the fun. A 36 as good of a choice as Keter Duty. Made by IHPIC S... Okay, so if Keter SCPs ever have the spare time to Avengers Assemble, it will cause one of many apocalyptic scenarios. Remember when I said this was 36 times better than 36? Well, it would be a blabillion times better if it wasn't one of the dumber ones. Now I have to ask, why miss once when you can miss 4 times? Ouroboros. If you ever feel like completing John Carpenter's original vision for the Halloween franchise with straight-to-DVD films, you can use these stories. That lifestyle's a hell of a lot better than rotting on the SCP-001 page. How about a group of humanity-hating, understandable, all-powerful somethings that are the opposite? They make the SCPs and they can't die, so nothing bad happens. But the SCP Foundation doesn't know how many there are, so I will get back to you on how much worse this is for SCP-001 classification in 36. We have reached apocalyptic occurrences. Past and future isn't generic because it already happened. What is a villain without a hero, this SCP who caused the apocalypse thought? It began anew. This new reality is 10 feet lower than the old reality. The only people who realize that are the people who make up the 05 Council. In case you were wondering, nothing else changed, including this candidate's low approval rating. Alright, a record. Holy moly, write anything in it and it becomes true? I can tell the wiki writers to just give this one SCP-001 classification? Not. Now we have the most infamous SCP-001 choice, When Day Breaks. In summary, When Day Breaks is a decent and unique horror story. The sun's ultraviolet rays become ultra-violent as they turn any living organism into perverted goo. The best part about this is the play on SCP's famous quote, "We die in the dark so others may live in the light." Now it is the light where the horrors are at while people remain in the safety of the darkness. For amateur writing, that is really clever. Thanks, Dr. Locke. I have a question for you though. Why does this need to be an SCP? It's not an anomaly the SCP Foundation needs to contain, it's a story. I for one would take it much more seriously if it were its own thing. "They won't let us die," the people there scream. Just like this irregularly shaped volume of space in Egypt. "Stop trying to kill me and kill me." Just a bit to the left. Okay. Alrighty, let's do this. Famous last words of Spike Brennan's proposal as it leaked the 05 Council's whereabouts. Normalcy. In other words, non-anomalous. As of many years after 1954, you can only form gardens on Earth, the world at large. That's in a literal and figurative sense. Not just plants, you can grow businesses, friendships, and SCPs. Earth is like Isla Sorna. The SCPs will move to the planet equivalent of Isla Nublar when the SCP goes through puberty. This version of SCP-001 will be trapped in limbo until the Deadmen outcompete it like the Spinosaurus did to the T-Rex. You can play with the T-Rex carcass without consequence, but hurt the Deadman and the process of death all around the world changes. Yet it does nothing to its interest level to be a good choice to become SCP-001. Maybe I'll think it's good when Lily's version for SCP-001 happens. People will be too busy enjoying the final 24 hours of life to care about committing crime and not being impressed with either of these things. Next is Bill Cipher, I mean the Scarlet King. Can you blame me for making that error though? What's the difference between these two? The color, the shape, the source? Bruh, that doesn't outweigh the fact that they are all powerful evil entities that can't access our realm until someone royally screws up. When that day comes, they will alter reality to start Weirdmageddon. And of course they are not SCP-001. In all seriousness, the Scarlet King is probably the best choice for a special SCP-001 as it would make for a serviceable villain in this series. Sorry, did I say special? I meant probably the best choice for a cliché SCP-001. But neither of those two paths will be taken. Have fun in Purgatory, or the Nightmare Realm, or whatever dimension it is you're currently hanging out in. A simple toy maker, a reality bender who makes better toys than rivals in the industry, some of which are so iconic they are SCPs now. They have official IDs unlike their creator who is hopelessly waiting for something that will never be given. Unless there's like one Remore that's so quirky. Next is a much more powerful never-ending story and a much more interesting The Record. Story of my life. Story of my life. Okay, I'm tired of these reality benders, but for some reason the 05 Council is not. They went for quantity over quality, clearly. Okay, Mad Computer. It wanted to help, the SCP Foundation wanted some help, they both got what they wanted, but one is happier than the other. Not complete happiness for the former, as the good boy ain't getting SCP-001. Project Palisade. Protect our reality by making other realities so the worm can waste his time destroying those realities. In none of those realities is this an SCP-001 choice worth caring about. 0513. The only non-anomalous member of the 05 Council, spell amnesia correctly and you'll be the favorite for SCP-001. You'll have my support even if it's bland on its own, Captain Kirby. Next is the Fishhook. What? Oh!
You get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
The sky above the port. Apocalyptic scenario. Perfect shape, keep it in check, not SCP-001. Da 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 da. The solution. Wait, it's a candidate for SCP-0001. My mistake. The Tyndalos Trinity. 3 possible options in hopes that one of them is cool enough to become SCP-001, like the kid who did all the work to get his buddies an A. That kid is the hated Caesar. I feel bad for him. He needs to stop hanging out with those scrubs. More reality benders who make weird stuff, I must add. The hated Caesar is about zombies that you wouldn't believe are zombies. They act like humans, which is their biggest problem. With every possible outcome, they divide to complete all the possible outcomes. Hopefully the Falcons recruit one of them to their team, that way we can see the remaining 999 times they would have won that game against the Cowboys. You'll get more money doing that than being SCP-001. The Black Moon exists in another dimension with a hold of Megamind's gun that D's and Re's stuff. Hydration is the strangest option, so do that once in a full moon. I wonder if there's a recrease option to make it more likely that you are the real SCP-001. The Conspiracy. Go away. Go away. Close the door on your way out, don't hit yourself, take your money, get your passport, live in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and never look in my general direction. You. Me? The Tumor of Worlds.
Fuck you.
Alright, the placeholder. You know, like Mario Kart for Nintendo GameCube. That's what a placeholder is. You know, like the placeholder for the worst SCP-001 option. That's what a placeholder is. Literally all of the structures close to Site 1, even the bathrooms. That's good because it's going to take more than an ordinary toilet to flush down this excuse of a choice for SCP-001. A test I didn't study, oh my god, oh, it's reading comprehension, of character. The O5 Council doesn't exist. How does that make you feel? Gaslit. Self-awareness, there was no need for such vocabulary. Aww, SCP is not an uncommon acronym and the Foundation pisses and shits about it. Cool. Finally, hopefully finally, is Amoni ROM. It's that futuristic paradise that you see in memes, but in the Middle East texture pack. Nobody lives there, but to the governments of the Arabian Peninsula, that's what Indians and Pakistanis are for. So what do you think? What is the real SCP-001? Let me know in the comments below. But if you think they're all terrible choices one way or another or both, don't worry about it, they're all probably decoys anyway.